Hey up everyone! So today's movie I'm discussing on the channel is the body horror rom-com from Aussie filmmaker Michael Shanks called Together. This film has been on my radar for quite some time because it had some incredible buzz when it first debuted at Sundance earlier this year. People were comparing it to like The Substance, which got me very excited, very curious. And also the marketing for this film has been top tier. This is my first introduction to Michael Shanks as a filmmaker, but I am already familiar with who Alison and Dave Franco are, who are the stars of Together, and who are, funnily enough, a real life couple, and they play a couple in this film called Millie and Tim. They've been dating for the better part of a decade now. They're both in their mid-30s, and Tim is an aspiring musician. Millie is a school teacher, and once she gets offered a new job, they uproot their lives in the big city for a more simple domesticated life in the rural countryside. But when they go on a hike in their new area, they encounter an unnatural force which threatens their lives, their love, and their flesh. And that is all the plot you need to know. Together fits comfortably into the modern subgenre of elevated horror, because it's a horror that taps into something that's universally scary about the human experience. And in the case of Together, it's all about relationships and how we can be codependent on our partners in order to feel complete. In Together, Tim and Millie are in the twos and throws of their relationship. They're at that point in their relationship where they clearly are very comfortable with each other, but the spark seems to have fizzled. They're not really having sex anymore due to Tim's lack of interest, but they're at that point where they're in too deep. And Millie even says to Tim, if we don't split now, it'll be much harder later, which is a lot of foreshadowing of the body horror that comes later in this film when these two characters find themselves literally sticking to each other like glue. But it's also an apt observation about relationships in general, and anyone who's been in a long-term relationship can attest that after a while, when you've been together a long time, you stop becoming an I and then you start becoming a we. You and your partner always come as a pair. You're just one big coupley blob. I can attest that this is very true with my relationship. I've been with my partner Glenn for 11 years now, and we always come as a pair. Sometimes I don't feel like I'm really seen as an individual anymore because everyone always asks me, how's your other half, Glenn? And to be fair, it's actually very sweet. Like, it's nice that people see us as inseparable. He's very much the heads to my tails, the salt to my pepper. We've very much become our own blobby couple at this point, so much so that we even have our own smushed, amalgamated couple name like the celebs do. Like, you've got Glenn plus Luke equals Gluke. That's our cute little couple named Gluke. We even have a doormat outside our flat that says so. Aww. But yeah, Together is exactly how I like my horror films. Hilarious, gnarly, and thought-provoking. The horror metaphor in this film was very relatable. I would be lying if I said there weren't times in my relationship where I was a little worried that I was becoming codependent on my partner. So many of Tim and Millie's insecurities in this film are things that I've also worried about in my own relationship. Like, sometimes you do worry, am I providing value for my partner? Or do they love me as much as I love them? Or that feeling that you're not good enough or deserving of your partner. I very much saw parts of myself in both Tim and Millie, so I connected with them as individuals. I connected with them as a couple. Good horror films are the ones where you identify and care for the characters, and I very much did care for these characters. When the icky stuff starts happening later in this film, I was really fretting for them. Alison and Dave Franco are dynamite together in this film. Like, I know they're a real life couple, and that gives them a natural advantage because they just get to bring that, you know, genuine, authentic, coupley chemistry to the screen. Even the way they playfully mock each other feels very natural, like any couple would, like they probably would in real life. But yeah, if you guys have been watching my channel for a while, then you'll know that I love a horror film with some subtext or something interesting to say, and Together very much does have a unique point of view. And as a director, Shanks has a very keen eye for visual imagery. Duality is definitely a key theme of this film, given that search for one's other half. But yes, you've got male and female. You've got the north and the south pole of a magnet, you know, things that are drawn together. He uses a lot of shots of mirrors and reflections to emphasize that theme of duality. And there's a lot of times where things kind of get fused together in this. Like, there's this nightmarish sequence where Tim and Millie are in bed and he's seeing his parents in a bed across the way, and while the parents are sort of a reflection of Tim and Millie, the bed also looks like it's being fused together from above, like it's all merging into one. Also, I just mentioned magnets, and in a way, Tim and Millie are kind of like the north and south poles of a magnet, and also compasses are another visual imagery that Shanks likes to use in this, because compasses use magnets to tell you which direction is north. And there's a scene where Tim is in the shower and Millie is driving to the shops to get supplies, and every time she makes a turn, Tim's body gets flung around the shower in the direction of which way she's turning, because he's literally being pulled in her direction. I thought that was pretty clever, but it was also fun to watch Dave Franco being flung around this shower like some sort of magnetic, fleshy ragdoll. There's also shots in this that reflect the symbolic nature of codependency. Like there's a scene in this where Tim wakes up in this underground cave with lots of tree roots, and he's breathing quite heavily, and as he breathes in, both him and the roots of the trees begin to expand and contract. So when he exhales, the tree exhales. It's a symbolic metaphor for the symbiotic nature of codependency. Breathing in together, breathing out together, they are one. But yeah, shout out to the sound team in that sequence. That was very well done. But also when it comes to fusion and things sticking together, there's also scenes in this where Tim and Millie start sticking together like glue. A shout out to the makeup and hair and practical effects team who made the glue look so sticky and gross. That scene where Dave Franco is pulling the hair out of his mouth was particularly disgusting, so kudos. And also a shout out to the visual effects team, because when the bodies do start like really merging together, those visual effects did look pretty good. But a shout out to Michael Shanks for like prioritizing practical effects over visual effects. I'm sure Carly Fajra would be very proud of you right now. I just really appreciate filmmakers who only use CGI when it's absolutely necessary. But yeah, when it comes to horror in this, there is some particularly gnarly stuff going on. Yeah. But yeah, Michael Shanks does a very good job of finding the comedy in the gross out moments. Like there's one scene in particular, I don't want to say too much about it because I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but this scene had everyone in my screening like wincing and like covering their genitals, not in a sexual way, but more in a ooh, that looks painful kind of way. But yeah, as a man, I can imagine it's like the equivalent of mistaking superglue for lubricant. But there's also a scene in this with an electric saw, and it's kind of hard to watch, as you can probably imagine, but the clip that Michael Shanks immediately crash cuts to afterwards is hilarious. But yeah, I laughed a lot watching this film, whether it was during an awkward proposal scene, some physical comedy, or even a hilarious needle drop, which I totally predicted, by the way, before I saw this film, guys. If you saw my Instagram stories, I shared a picture of the poster, and then I put this soundtrack choice to the poster, and it was literally the song that was used in the film's most climactic moment, and I was like, oh, I totally called it. I should make horror movies. Do we need to talk about Together potentially getting some Oscar nominations? I know a lot of people are probably going to compare this film to The Substance and maybe think, oh yeah, The Substance got all those noms, maybe Together will, but I'm not expecting Together to play at the Oscars like The Substance did. This isn't going to be like Demi Moore. I'm not seeing acting nominations for Dave Franco or Alison Brie, even though they're really good in this. Having said that, I do think this film would be worthy of a few nominations, like hair and makeup maybe, even though I don't think it's as big of a showcase as what The Substance pulled off with that hair and makeup. But yeah, it definitely would be worthy of at least being in the conversation. Don't know if it would get the nomination. And also in terms of originality, I would love to see it get into Best Original Screenplay. But yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. I just don't think this film is going to have the same level of impact on the zeitgeist that The Substance did. But I would love to be proven wrong. But what do you guys think? Do you think Together might get some Oscar nominations? Or do you think it's at least deserving of some Oscar nominations? What do you have to say? Let your voice be heard in that comment section down below. All right, then let's ask them 3 questions. Firstly, would I watch it again? Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, this is very much my type of horror. It made me squirm, it made me laugh, and it made me think. But yes, I will be buying a copy and adding it to my collection. Question 2, do I recommend it for you guys? I mean, Together is definitely a must-watch for any horror fan. Like I say, this is a horror highlight of 2025. And it's also just a great movie to watch like with friends or, yes, weirdly, also on a date night, I'd say. Like if your partner can stomach body horror, then yes, I would say definitely give it a go. It's got a little bit of everything. It's funny, it's emotional, it's romantic. And you also might find yourself identifying with the characters in this film. But yeah, if body horror ain't your thing, then stay away from it. And question number 3, what score would I give it out of 10? Together is a very compelling and clever elevated horror. Great performances, gnarly visuals, and just as many laughs as there are gross out moments in this. So I'm gonna give Together a score of 8 out of 10. But as always, guys, it's just one bloke's opinion. I would love to hear your thoughts on Together. Have you seen the movie? If you have, what do you think of it? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? What do you think of Franco and Brie's performances? We have to say, let your voice be heard in that comment section down below. If you guys have enjoyed this vid, help me out by hitting that little thumbs up button for me. If you want more movie, TV, and Oscars-related content, don't forget to click that subscribe button. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. For more things related to movies, TV, the Oscars, and popcorn culture, I'm Luke Hearfield, and I'll see you next time.